Hi, it's Neve G, and I'm here with Megan McDonald, and we're going to share a little bit about urine therapy today. And Megan, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. I um, was introduced to you through the yoga healer community, and I came to that community because I work with people in holistic health. I mean, I'm a yoga teacher, I do Reiki, but a lot of what I came into wanting to work with people about was like the unconscious, getting into really blocked programs, helping people find a way to do self healing. And so the two main things that I do with people are the Dalian method, which is going into the unconscious, and then urine therapy. And because both of those are self healing, they both give us the responsibility back for our own health and help us to understand ourselves better at a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. So the shifts that I've seen in my life that have been the most dramatic and profound have been from those. I live in Canada. I'm on an island called Prince Edward Island. So if people know Anne of Green Gables, that's where I live. And it is just as beautiful as it says it is. And I run my business out of here. I work with people locally and online. And at the moment, I run a urine therapy course a couple times a year. And I'm working toward longer courses where I incorporate everything that I do. And I'm really excited about that. And so that is partially why I'm talking to you today, because we met each other through that community that helps us to be able to run courses about what we're passionate about sharing with people.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so I wanted to just kind of dive right in, and I'm curious how you found out about urine therapy and what intrigued you to start experimenting.
Yeah. I did a yoga teacher training in 2013 in Vancouver, and the teacher, turns out she'd been doing urine therapy for 30 years, and I didn't know her. So somebody else said, "Oh, she puts her pee on her body." And I thought, okay, I don't know what that means. And all she said in that particular course was, if you want to try it, put a little bit on the back of one hand and rub it in the back of one hand for 3 days every time you remember, and just compare two hands at the end of 3 days. I had very dry skin. So after 3 days, I noticed a huge difference between my two hands. And that was February. And I've always had to use hand cream all the time, all year round, but a lot in the winter. And suddenly I was finding I didn't need hand cream. And so then I thought, well, if it's working that well on my hands, what's it going to do for my face? So then I started putting it on my face. And then my face started changing. And then I started putting it on my whole body. Did that for about 6 months. And then I did a 300-hour training with the same teacher, and she did a whole day on urine therapy and the history of it and how she came to know about it and drinking it and using it in all these different ways. And so I took a bunch of notes and I tried drinking it. It was about 6 months after I started putting on my skin. It took me 6 months to do it. And I've never stopped. I have every day for the last 8 years, I have put urine somewhere on my body, and my health has just improved and improved and improved. And my own connection with myself has gotten deeper, and my ability to trust myself and be present and enjoy what I'm doing has gotten stronger. It does mean I'm a little countercultural, and some people find it a little strange. Absolutely. But number one thing I would say is, if it was dangerous, I'd be dead, because the way I use it, it would have harmed me, and it's definitely not harming me.
Yeah,
So
so the benefits you've noticed is like not as dry skin, clearer face, more consciousness, more body awareness.
yeah.
And those are all personal things. Yeah, keep going. That's great. Yeah.
Mm.
What else?
Yeah, better sense of self, more acceptance of the self. My thinking is clearer. I mean, there's lifestyle things that come with that, because like I also do yoga every day, and I meditate and I chant and I eat a vegetarian diet, like a plant-based diet. Like there's other things that I do, but I think like they're all interconnected. I started doing urine therapy 8 years ago, and I did just fresh urine for 5 years. And at around 5 years, my body just said, "You're going to stop eating meat now." It just stopped me. And there was
Hmm.
no effort. It wasn't hard. Nothing dramatic happened. And I didn't feel a sense of loss or any problem from it. It just stopped. And that's one of those things that I find with, you do the urine therapy, and then when your body's ready, when the moment's right, when everything is there, suddenly something clicks into place. Like I was never able to fast earlier in my life. I would get horrible cramping and feel depleted and just I couldn't do it. And after years of working with the urine, I tried doing a liver cleanse, which involved a little bit of a fast. And all of a sudden I could do it. And I went, oh, this is this practice. It has changed me. I'm not the same. Now, I've also noticed things like the more I've done with it, I've swished in, I do a lot of swishing, like oil pulling, and my teeth, my receding gums are moving back up. My teeth seem to be regrowing enamel. The tender parts where they scratch on the tooth and you feel like that nerve pain, it went down from like 8 teeth to 1 tooth last year. I don't have
Wow.
sensitivity in my teeth. Um, I've used it on my head when I had an eczema outbreak, and it was the only thing that would bring the heat out of my head. I use it on everything on my skin. If I get a sunburn, I put it on my skin, or I put a cloth soaked in it on my skin, and the sunburn will disappear. No peeling, no tightness, no itchiness, and the skin looks perfect afterwards. I've had any cut, any abrasion, anything that happens to my skin, on goes the urine, and it heals beautifully. Sometimes I even forget things. Like I had frostbite on my toes and they swelled up, and I wrapped the foot in again in a urine pack, and the pain went down and the swelling went down. You know, so things where normally you go to a hospital and they would try all these different things or give you medication, I find the urine takes the place of almost everything. I use very few products now. I own very few products, and when I travel, I need almost nothing when I head out the door. And I could use less than I use now as well.
Yes.
It
That's
frees you.
that's the exciting part to me. I'm like, wait, instead of having these jars of oil and all these things so that I can take care of myself when I'm traveling, I can literally just bring like me and find an empty jar. And like that's one of the things that was appealing to me. So what is in pee, and can you share that study, a little bit from that study? Because what you were saying is if you Google it, it says, oh, it's 95% water, but
Yeah. So anything you see online, I did this last week actually, and it was like some sites said there were like 4 or 5 elements in urine, like nitrogen and urea, which is a well-known one. Urea gets put in all the expensive face creams, and because it's very, very moisturizing. That's the moisturizing element. And often the urea in a face cream is either horse urea or it's synthetic urea, but you're producing it every day for free. So that's what it'll say online. It'll say there's almost nothing. But there was a study done in Alberta, the University of Alberta, with other researchers. It was a 6 or 7 year study, and it's called the Human Urine Metabolome. And in that study, they get to the point where they say that they have found over 3,000 components of urine. And inside those 3,000 components, there's close to 4,000 amino acids alone. Amino acids and polypeptide chains are the building blocks for life, and they're also why we eat protein. So there's thousands of those in there. And then we were just talking too, like there's also a lot of lipids, and lipids are fats, and fats make you feel full. They're satiating, they calm you, but they're also really good for your nervous system. So they help nourish your nervous system, which means also your bone marrow and that whole system of your body at a really deep level. So from an Ayurvedic perspective, you're nourishing all the tissues of the body. You're nourishing the blood and the plasma and the fat and the bone marrow and the reproductive tissue as well by using your urine.
okay, and is it similar, like in Ayurveda, we talk about sesame oil, like oil penetrating all layers of the tissue. Urine does that as well,
Yes,
right? If you
it
put it
does.
on your skin, it's going to nourish all the way through.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why like foot soaks are one of the biggest things that get recommended for urine therapy, because when you soak your feet, it's going to nourish all the way through to the bone, but it's also going to nourish through the nerves, because the nerve endings all have a place in the hands, the feet, the ears. So you're nourishing your nervous system by going with a foot soak.
Which we all need.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
need to nourish our nervous systems. Yeah.
Yeah. And urine too, also we call it urine or pee, but a more medical term for it is ultraplasma filtrate. And what does that mean? Well, actually ultra blood plasma filtrate, because the word blood is important there. Your kidneys filter your blood. And if you spin your blood, if you give your blood to a doctor and they take some and they spin it, it's going to divide into the red blood cells, a little bit of like stem cells, and then a whole bunch of yellow, thick liquid. And that's the plasma. Now it's yellow, so it's pee. When your kidneys filter your blood, you end up, so now it's super clean because the kidneys are one of the best filtration systems on the planet. They filter it out. Your pee is actually just extra. It's not waste, it's not toxic, it's not dangerous. It's just extra of what's in your body. And it's just been filtered at the highest level. So when it's full of prana, life force, when you put that back into your body, whether you soak your feet in it or you drink it or you rub it on your hand or you put it in your belly button, you are nourishing the whole system with the energy of your blood coming back into you. And it also has all the hormones that you're producing and the antibodies that you're producing and the minerals. And it's an amazing, magical product.
When you say it gets me like chills. I'm like, ooh, there's so much, and it's free.
Yeah.
We make it every day. Like, so I know some people dilute it when they first are starting and stuff. Can you also put essential oil in there, or does that mess with the compounds? Or like if people don't like the smell?
Well, at the beginning, especially fresh urine, it depends on what you were eating the night before. But if your diet's really acidic or really salty, you're going to get some of that. But otherwise, first thing in the morning, a lot of people like to drink it because it's full of everything the body's been filtering all night, which means it's really rich. However, if that's the saltiest urine of the day and that's not helping, then you can also use something from a few hours later once you've had some herbal tea or you've had fruit or you've had something else in your system. And that could be a little easier to engage with, smell-wise, taste-wise, everything. There's no rush with urine therapy. You absolutely can just put a drop on the back of your hand, a drop on your third eye, a drop under your tongue. Start homeopathically, go slow. There's some people don't want to put it on their skin, but they're happy to drink it. Other people don't want to drink it, but they'll put it on their skin. It doesn't matter. Whatever works for you, it's yours. It's the most important thing is to see what happens and be curious. And if you want to put it in a smoothie or in your fruit juice or in your herbal tea, go for it. That's absolutely fine. As you work with it more, you end up not wanting to mix it with other things because you want to have the full effect of the energy and the prana and the vitality and the vigor and everything that's in it. So eventually I don't want to mix it with anything, but at the beginning, I'd say it's better to use it than not use it.
Okay, yeah, I feel like that's what the few people I've talked to about it, right? Because most people are like, da, 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 right? They don't want to hear it. But the few people that have been a little bit open or I've talked about it, that's some of their first questions is like, can I change the smell? And what I have found personally, because I started experimenting with it in September or sometime a little bit earlier this year. And I noticed that as I was working with it, it got less, there was less aversion to it. It wasn't as strong in a negative way.
Yeah.
And it started tasting better. It started tasting better. Like, let's just be real here. It tasted like coconut water with a little salt or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, this is kind of good. Like, I kind of want to drink it. It's kind of a magical thing, which is why I wanted to interview you, because, it is countercultural. We're not hearing about this, but that's because then all of those companies that make so much money producing drugs don't get money if we're drinking our own pee. If we're using our own pee, they're not making money. So even if they knew that it was healing, why would they share it?
Yes. Yeah. And there are books that talk about this. They're easier to find now that we have online sources. But when I started looking for them back in 2013, I had to go to specialty bookstores that had the pee books in them to find these books that people had published. I can also share a resource with you at the end that you could share with anyone who's interested, where there's a lot of the PDFs of these books. They're not necessarily the highest quality PDF, but it's enough that you can read it and decide if you want to buy it for yourself, if you think it's a good resource. So share that as well.
Yeah, definitely. I will share that, because I think because I started talking about what it's doing for me, like now people are texting me and messaging me and asking me like, so wait, what was that urine therapy thing you were talking about? Yeah. And my practice right now is I'm just starting to get into looping a little bit. Like, I'm just starting to have a little bit throughout the day, not a lot, like a sip.
Yep.
That's where I'm at with that. But in the morning, I take my fresh urine, I put it all over my body. So I'll do my face, and then I'll take oil and massage my face. So it's like urine and then oil. And then I do that to my arms and legs. And my skin feels so amazing. And I like was bouncing around dancing and singing the other morning because I was so happy. And I was like, I was like, I don't understand why urine is making this even more powerful practice, because I've done self massage for years now. But something about the urine like lifted up my mood. I think it's because it's like kind of funky and wild. I don't know.
So there is an element of playfulness and fun because we were claiming something that we were told was dirty. And we're like, well, wait, it's not though. It's not. This is actually fun. It's got all of your hormones in it. And so it feeds back in the oxytocin, the love hormone. It feeds back in the sleep hormones. It does energize us. A lot of people who suffer with depression tell of the first time they drink it that their depression starts to lift.
Wow, that is amazing. Yes, I'm glad we're talking about this. Because anxiety and depression, we need to conquer this as a human race. We need to help with that. So I think urine could be part of the cure for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
So as far as like female hormones, I'd love to talk about that a little bit with you, because a lot of people experience negative things from their period, and then therefore they kind of don't like their period or their period time. And then that creates more of a disconnection, right, from nature and from their natural homeostasis. I mean, I have re-embraced my period, right? Going from disliking it to loving it and looking forward to the time that I'm bleeding, because there's so many spiritual insights that come through to me. But one of the reasons I started urine therapy is because someone in the community had said that there's no menopause symptoms if you've been doing it. And I'm like, okay, I should hit menopause 25 years. So I'm going to start now so that I have no symptoms. But yeah, can you talk about it in relation to, any of that, girls, women
So
hormones?
the story that I've shared numerous times. So the woman who taught me, her name is Shakti Mhi. She lives in Tel Aviv now, and she only teaches in Hebrew at the moment. So if anyone speaks Hebrew, get in touch with Shakti Mhi. She's amazing. Her English is absolutely great. It's just that she's living in Tel Aviv, so she's only teaching in Hebrew at the moment. She was living in Vancouver, and she was 52-ish, 50, 52. And she'd been told there was this women's clinic that was testing to see where people were at with perimenopause, menopause, whatever was going on. And so she went, and she said it was like a $200 test. And they ran all these different things in terms of bone density and hormones, and I don't even know what else that they ran. It was, a lot. And they came to the end, and they brought her in to tell her test results, and they said, "We think something went wrong. We want to run it again. Your results aren't normal." So she said, "Go ahead, run it again." And they ran it again. They came back and they said, "Okay, we got the same results. What are you not telling us?" Because apparently they had some sort of thing lined up where there was like the midline, and then there was deficient, and then there was excessive of different things. And they're looking for a pattern in women of a certain age. And she wasn't meeting it at all. And so she said, "Do you have an open mind?" And the doctor said, "Okay." And she said, "I drink my own urine." And the doctor was open enough to immediately go, "Oh, you're doing hormone replacement therapy on yourself. Now everything makes sense.
Wow.
Your levels make sense because you're not deficient because you've been replenishing your own hormones." So she did not have the symptoms of menopause. She didn't have hot flashes. She didn't have a change in appetite. She didn't have weight gain. She didn't have a decreased libido.
It's pretty magical.
Yeah. And she's now 60-ish. And I showed pictures of her to people last week. She's got long, black, lustrous hair. Her skin is tight and beautiful. And she teaches yoga to hundreds of people every week in Israel. And she is incredibly flexible and supple in her body and fast in her mind. She does not look 50. Or sorry, 60. Maybe she looks 50. She does not look 60.
Well, I definitely have heard that the urine therapy and like different people in the community are sharing things, but yeah, definitely helping with eczema, but also like hair increasing, gray going away, wrinkles disappearing, acne, asthma, migraines, indigestion, infection, warts. even hair loss.
Yep. It will regrow hair. You have to be consistent with that. You can't, if you stop, the hair might go down again because you have to keep the level high. But that's not hard to do. Once you start, you want to keep going, as you said.
Yeah, and it's very subtle. The shift, there's different things that are happening that are very subtle, which I don't think I was crediting it to urine. And now that we're talking, I'm like, oh, I think this other thing, my teeth are definitely whiter from swishing with it. And I'm curious to go to the dentist now because I'm wondering what will happen. But anyways, yeah, it's kind of, it feels like a very magical thing that's free that people aren't doing, or there's a cultural aversion to. But then everyone, oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, just the aversion thing is something that we have to, the main thing to remember about this is disgust is taught. We get used to being disgusted by certain things, but we forget that we were taught it. Babies are not disgusted by anything. They will touch anything and they will put anything in their mouth. They want to experience the world. We teach them every time someone changes a baby's diaper, what do they go? Ooh, yucky, don't touch. So the first thing that a baby hears repeated over and over and over again is no, I'm disgusted by this thing you just did. And so the baby learns to be disgusted by it as well. But that's only learned behavior because different cultures around the world are disgusted by different things. We're disgusted by the notion of eating horse meat or dog meat or cat meat, but there's countries where they eat those animals and they're not disgusted. So it's not a human, it's not a universal truth. And if it's not a universal truth, then how flexible are we in our minds? Can we say, I'm going to get over this?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I really didn't have any aversion. Like once I heard that the community was doing it and there was all these health benefits, I was like, oh, I'm trying it because I would like to be really healthy and fit and live to 120. And so I need all of these resources. Like if I'm going to make it and be, happy and healthy, then I feel like I need the secrets of life, which apparently are coming out of my body every couple hours, right? So it was like, wow, I was like, this is so exciting. So I started experimenting right away and sharing that I was experimenting. And, my partners of the, like, just don't tell me about it kind of thing. Like, and I'm like, okay, I won't tell you, but I have like a stashed aged urine, but I'm not really sure what to do with the aged urine yet. It's just sitting there aging.
Yes, I'm happy to chat about that, but it is sort of another
level. Yeah, it's like the next level, right?
Yeah.
Because you can smell the ammonia in it. It gets a little bit stronger with the ammonia. And the only thing that I've done is put it on, like if I get a zit or if I get a spot or something I want to go away. I actually have one and I was like, I think I'm going to test it out on this one little spot because I don't know what it is. It like appeared. It's not a zit, but it's like a spot. So I'm going to test it on there. But yeah, I mean, I think it's good we could chat about it a little bit because I'm kind of getting curious. I'm like, okay, I have all this aged urine from my cleanse. So I saved everything from when I was cleansing. Nice. I was like, that's probably like the really good stuff because I was eating very healthy. So
yeah, absolutely. Any urine can be aged, and ultimately the best thing again is to use it. There's a book called The Water of Life by John Armstrong, and it's one of the books that'll be in the link that I'll send you, where there's a lot of PDFs that you can download. And it was written by a man in the 1940s who had tuberculosis in the First World War, and he was close to death, and he found out about urine therapy and he started doing it, and he lived, and people knew how sick he was. So when he lived, they went, what did you do? Because this is First World War. You don't have access to what we have access to today.
Right.
And so then people started sending other people to him. When the doctors would say, we can't help you anymore, then someone will go, oh, we'll go talk to John Armstrong. Maybe he can help you. And he developed all these protocols, all these ways of working with urine. And he's the one who wrote down, at least in English, I'm sure it existed before that in other places, but in English, to have a book about this. He was really the first to do this, where it talks about aging urine for 4 days minimum and rubbing that all over the skin of the person. But he was dealing with people with stage 4 cancer and gangrene and they were on the edge of dying. And he was bringing them back to life and getting them to drink all their urine, regardless of how sick they were, and to rub their bodies with aged urine. And he insisted on the aged, that was important. Now, people today have taken what he did and they've gone further with it and said, like, I age mine and I don't use it until it's at least 2 weeks old because it stinks in the first 2 weeks because the ammonia's off gassing, to your point. Like, that's when you have the most smell, is in the first 2 weeks. After that, it calms down because the chemical compounds start to come to more of a homeostasis. But even then, I leave it with cloth over top of it, like cloth and a rubber band around a glass jar for months, like 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 months. Some people have said after 9 months, it's mature. I've had some bottles seem to stop off gassing after 4 or 5, but I would generally agree with the 9-month idea. And of course, why not? It's something else. 9 months is a really good cycle for our bodies.
Right.
So I do age it. At a certain point, you have to cap it or it's all going to evaporate. So there is that. But if you can't, I know some people go, I can't have it open because I live in a small apartment. Then you open it whenever you can, because it will age faster and more smoothly with more access to oxygen. But you just do it once a day or once every 2 days. You open it for 15 minutes or an hour or whatever you can, or you put it by an open window, or you do something with it. You do it when you're alone. You put a diffuser with, I use orange essential oil and rosemary in the room after I've had any sort of urine smell. And nobody ever walks in and says the room smells like urine, ever. It's not a problem. But you learn how to work with it yourself. The benefits of the aged urine, it starts to evolve. And so some people actually call it evolved urine. Within, as soon as it leaves your body, it starts evolving. So one of the people in the yoga healer community had done this. I don't think she realized it was a great experiment until she did it. Her urine was acidic in the morning. She left it out in a jar and she did a pH strip later in the day and it had already turned alkaline.
Wow.
That's hours. It's not weeks. It's just hours later. The urine starts evolving. It starts working on itself and it starts filtering itself and getting cleaner. But it also develops a bigger, like the prana in it. It's like it's fermenting in the sense that its abilities are growing. It's getting bigger in its etheric blueprint. If you were to put your hands around it like a Reiki or energy healer, you would feel an energetic field getting larger and larger around it over time. Aged urine that's a month old has a negative ion charge of somewhere between, this depends on the person and their body, but it could be between -200 and -400 of an ion charge. I've seen somebody use an ORP meter to look for the negative ion charge, and negative ions are life-giving. Positive ions means there's no life in the thing. Why do we walk by the salt water or to go for walks in the woods or do barefoot on the ground? It's to get negative ions into the body. So the aged urine develops a huge negative ion charge. And on top of that, it goes very alkaline, like over 9 on the alkalinity scale. And most of the time, if we were to try to eat something that alkaline and with that high of a charge to it, we would burn ourselves. But you can drink aged urine and it's not burning you. So you're getting the benefits of some of the most inflammation reducing, oxidative stress reducing material on the planet. And what is the basis behind every illness that we have? At some level, it's inflammation and oxidative stress.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
So that's why we age it. Fresh urine also has some of those abilities, but the aged urine it ignites a fire. It's like a fire starter, whereas the fresh urine is like a sustainer. The fresh urine is deep nourishment, deep hydration of all your cells. And aged urine is this potent, almost explosive thing. It really has so much charge to it. If I drink a cup of fresh, I only have to drink like a tablespoon or maybe 2 of the aged to feel the same energetic effect in my body.
So do you think that this information is becoming more popular, or like people are doing more research because humanity is evolving and we're learning how to care for ourselves? Because even if you just look at yoga in the last 20 years, it's exploded. And this is a self-reflective practice, right? Where it's a meditative practice where we're learning how to heal our own body, especially if you go back a little further in the yoga world, right? It was really a self-healing modality, not necessarily a workout modality.
Yes.
So now we have like I'm noticing different trends, but I think it, especially like getting really popular at a time when humanity is really worried about like a pandemic or things going on where it's like things are out of my control. I know there was a COVID exposure in my son's class this week, and I went straight to urine. I was like,
Yes.
okay, I'm gonna neti with my urine. I do that every morning too. I'm gonna neti with my urine, and I'm gonna swish some, and I'm gonna drink some, because I think that I feel it. It's like boosting and clearing whatever could be in there.
Yeah.
And I feel great.
Yeah.
Everybody's testing negative, like, and it's like, wow, it's really not that difficult, and it's very inexpensive, like free.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Very free. Uh, it requires effort because you do
It
have
does.
to, engage with it yourself. It's not a cream someone else makes. You've got to find your way to have your own rhythm with it. But the free part is amazing. Yeah. I've been treating my mother's shingles with it recently. She has a shingles outbreak, and she was using topical creams like lidocaine and stuff to try to get the pain down. And they would only work for an hour or two. And I put aged urine on Band-Aids on her shingles outbreaks, and she's been getting anywhere from 4 to 8 hours of relief. And the shingles are healing on top of that.
Now, is that her aged urine or yours?
That's mine. She's not interested in aging her urine at all.
Okay, so you can share urine.
Yes. Now,
But
generally speaking, if somebody will do their own, that's ideal.
okay,
However, in the end, if you only have one person's urine available, it's better than nothing. And the other thing that has often been written about in the older texts, because urine therapy as Shivambu in the Ayurvedic tradition, Shiva is the Lord Shiva, a god, a deity, and Ambu are waters, but waters of the body. And so Shivambu is like saying holy water, water of God, divine water. Like that's the sort of elevation it's given in Ayurveda. They don't throw the word Shiva at everything. So this is a
right.
very highly elevated substance if they're putting the name of God on it. And so that's 5,000 years worth of text that they've been writing about this for a very long time. Chinese medicine as well talks about the power of urine, ancient texts. So there was something I started with. There was a reason I went there.
Other people's urine on your
Right,
body.
other people's urine. Thank you. They talk about how if someone's really, really depleted, really sick, that you want to find the urine of a healthy person. And often they would go to a pregnant woman or a woman who had recently given birth because her body is operating at optimal capacity to
Well, this
produce
is
what's needed. Yeah.
yeah, this is one thing that gets me kind of excited, is learning about these things, because I would like to have another child or two. And I'm like, wow, so I could drink my own urine. So I'm going to be getting all of that healthy, amazing stuff that our bodies produce. Like I'm going to be like, am I even going to have to eat food? I guess I'm going to have to. But man, it's like, I'm like, wow, this is going to be such a fascinating journey if, if that's what the universe allows, if that's what happens, because
Yeah.
there's all these tools. I have so many more tools than 7 years ago, 8 years ago when I was pregnant. I was just getting into Ayurveda. So I really didn't have this. And I'm like, okay, so pregnant woman, that's got to be like the best urine. That's got
Yeah.
to be like top notch.
Well, also because the body will just, even if the woman isn't at like her possible peak health, the body's going to take everything from her system to make the baby's health optimal, right? So the urine is going to be of a high caliber. One way or the other, the body will make it happen, which is amazing. And if she's really healthy when she's pregnant, then I think the sky's the limit. Like you can really go
Yeah.
far. There's two things that I wanted to mention. One is about the baby in the growing, like the fact that urine is necessary for growth of the fetus. And the other was just coming back to that idea of like, I'm not near menopause yet. Or I mean, I see no signs of it. And I can talk to what I've experienced about my own hormone change using urine. But back to this idea of the fetus, as soon as there's cells that implant inside the mother, and there's some sort of the sac, I don't know how fast that grows. This is something I don't know about. But I do know that the mother's urine enters the amniotic sac first.
Mm.
Because at the beginning, the fetus doesn't have a urethra. The fetus doesn't have a bladder. It's a bunch of cells. So first the mother's urine goes in, and the mother's urine helps the fetus to grow. The urine's essential for the fetus to grow. Once the fetus has grown enough to have a bladder and a urethra and start peeing, then the fetus starts peeing and less of the mother, I don't know if it's less or none, but the mother's urine stops being the major urine. The baby's urine takes over. And if the fetus doesn't start peeing, the lungs don't develop and the fetus will die. Like our
Mm.
urine actually forms our tissues, or in Ayurveda, our dhatus. The urine is integral to forming the tissue of the body. So the baby ends up with it. It's up its nose, it's in its eyes, and its ears, it's in its lungs, it's everywhere, and it's swimming in it. It's breathing it in like a fish in that sense. It's taking water in through the nose and into the lungs and back out through the mouth. And that is how we started life, all of us. If
So
urine,
fascinating.
yeah. And so just even logically, if urine were dangerous or toxic in any way, that would not be part of the design process of the human being. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just so cool to me to think about that. Okay, and then your own hormones. I wanted
Yeah.
to share that too.
So I, I'm someone who's never had a difficult period. It's always been like 32 days. And recently it's changed a little bit, like maybe 30 to 31, but it was 32 days forever. And 2 days of heavier, 1 to 2 days of lighter, and then a couple days of spotting, and that was it. And cramps occasionally, but really nothing to complain about. No migraines, no issues overarchingly. But I was eating wheat when I was a child, and it turns out I can't digest wheat. So when I stopped eating wheat, my periods changed radically right away. So there was a food issue that was stressing my body, and that changed my periods. That was when I was 26. So they got a little bit better. I started drinking urine when I was, 36, 35, something like that. Maybe, yeah, probably 35. And I noticed at some point in the first year or 2 years that my sense of having PMS had changed. So like in the 3 days before my period, I used to go through 3 days where I thought the world was ending every single month, right? Like everything was dramatic. Everything was emotional. That was the thing that I would feel. And even then I don't think it was that bad, again, compared with what I've heard from other people. But for me, that was a big like, oh, right. If I can just get through these 3 days, I'll be fine. After I'd been drinking my urine for about a year, I noticed a change. I noticed that I was more resilient. It didn't bother me as much. I still noticed I had emotions, but it wasn't as much. I also really felt like the number of times that I had cramps went down.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, for me and my ancestry, my mom, like I know that she used to take some type of medication when she was on her periods because they were so bad. And mine were really bad, cramps, migraines, emotions, like nonstop crying. And then when I started getting into Ayurveda, that's when I started paying attention to the moon and cycling with the moon. That's when things started to decrease, decrease, decrease. And I'm curious now because I really don't get a lot of emotional stuff or pain, but I feel like whatever I am experiencing is still going to kind of dissipate as I continue with the urine therapy journey. And there's a lot. I was hanging out with some moms at the park after school last week, and they're talking about how horrible perimenopause is, like how they're bleeding randomly and just so many things that people don't talk about perimenopause. Like it's not even a thing people talk about. And I was sitting there thinking like they're probably not open for me to start talking about urine therapy, but I'm pretty sure that would really help them. And so is that your sense, just especially with your mentor's story, that
Yeah.
for women things in general, all
Oh,
these different phases are
yes.
easier with urine therapy?
Yes. I feel like my overall during my entire cycle, all like the entire, whether it's 30 days or 32 days now or whatever, I am more balanced in all of it. I'm also more aware of the shifts now because when I put my own urine back in, I'm putting my own hormones back in. I'm telling my body, this is what you just produced. This is what I'm going through. And then the body goes, oh, I need to adjust that. You need a little bit more of this one. You need a little less of that. And
The
the body's
feedback loop.
constantly, The
Yeah.
feedback loop is strong. So when I started using aged, my period changed again. And it felt like it got even, like, again, like the emotional charge left me even more. I had fewer cravings. I still, because for me, it would be craving salty sweet. And
Chocolate.
I would have like a week of craving salty sweet. Then that went down to maybe 3 days of craving salty sweet. And now I will generally have 1 or maybe 2 days. And even as it's happening, I'm like, what is this? And I'm always a little confused that this is happening. And then I go, oh, it must be my period. That must be why I'm craving salty sweet today. Because it doesn't drive me. I feel it, but it's not the same drive or like feeling overwhelmed or almost manic because of it. It's it's softer than it ever was before. So I'm 44 and all of my friends are talking about perimenopause symptoms. They all think they're in perimenopause. I don't know if they all are or not. I haven't asked them, but they talk about it a lot. And they're talking about their periods getting heavier, being different than they've been before. Everybody's experiencing symptoms of things. I have no change. I am rock solid in my cycle, other than occasionally it's 30 days and sometimes it's 31. But that doesn't bother me because I've always had a longer cycle than everybody else anyway. But even there, it's not going between 26 and 32. It's a day here, a day there.
Right. Yeah, to me, what my intuitive hit on it is that it's just so powerful for women and their hormones to drink your pee. I don't think you can just put it on your body and get the same effect. I think you actually have to consume it.
Yeah. And though I would also add, you can use it through an enema or you can drink it too. Like I would say do it all. However, if you hit someone who's like, I don't know if I can drink it, but if they're happy to put a little tiny syringe, like a tablespoon, into their colon, that's going to get it straight into the bloodstream and the vagus nerve and help the liver detox and help the hormones as well. So I know I just threw a big thing out there. People are going, you want me to do what with it? But it can go eyes, ears, mouth, skin, belly button.
Yeah, I wanted to share
Yoni.
that with you. One of my clients is friend and client started putting 1 drop of fresh urine in her eye, 1 drop in each eye, and she stopped purchasing her $300 eye drops now. She was paying about a month, every month, $300 for these eye drops, and now she just does 1 drop in each eye and she's good to go.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff out there that I think that urine can heal, and even if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh, you're not really ready, that's okay. Maybe just like Megan suggested, 1 drop on your hand and just not on the other, and kind of compare them and see over a couple days. If it's meant for you in your journey, you'll find it. Like it'll be there, and maybe that's why you're listening right now, because maybe it's time. I don't know. So awesome. Well, do you have any closing thoughts or anything that we missed? I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah.
I loved the evolved urine. And what's the name for urine? The
Shivambu.
No, the ultra blood plasma name.
Ultra blood plasma filtrate.
Filtrate. Okay, that was the word I missed. Okay, I was like, I love some of these terms that you threw out. I'm gonna start using them because I think they're great. So
well, and on Instagram, on Facebook, in the social media world, it has exploded in the last 6 months. So many people are talking about it now who were not talking about it before.
Oh, really? See, this is so cool. I think it's it's time. It's time in our timeline of humanity, because we're healing ourselves. Healing ourselves is becoming more and more of a thing that's talked about and done versus outsourcing our healthcare, doing self-care instead. And so I think it's just time. And that's why I was like, I think it's good to have a conversation about it. And I'm glad you have a course so people can find that. I'll put that in my notes and your links. And where can we find you on social media?
So I'm at Expansion Healing in Instagram and Facebook, and expansionhealing.ca for Canada is my website. And I'm so excited to talk. I'd really love to talk to people about it, and I'm going to have some free resources once my website is sort of finished. I'll definitely have some information that anybody can access, because I'm really passionate about the fact that you produce your urine every day and you should have access to that information.
Totally.
And yeah, so just thank you so much for talking to me about it in the first place, and being willing to share that you're doing it too with people who know you, because the countercultural thing is a little much to step over sometimes, but
Yeah.
it gets easier and better every time I do it. And I'm let me talk about it. It's the best thing to talk about. I get so excited. I'm sure you can.
Well, let me tell you, there is a couple people that have come to me and said, one told me that every time that they poop in the morning, they think about me.
Yeah.
Because I encourage them to eliminate every morning.
Yep.
Another one, this yesterday or 2 days ago when I was hanging out with her, she's like, yeah, I always think about you when I'm scraping my tongue. So you know what? They're already thinking about me when they're doing these weird body things anyway. Why not share the pee? So thank you for being willing to chat with me about it and to spread the love, the self-healing love with others.
Yay. Thank you so much. This has been great.